I find myself back where it all began once more. We have minds and bodies which parse reality into segments, differentiating the past and the future, creating linearity out of singularity. And yet, even that linear illusion bends and warps, and like the great serpents of old, it eats its own tail. And so, here I was, once again, plunging into preborn night. Her weight leaves my arms again, and her words echo and fade within me. Darkest darkness takes their place, blackest blackness fully erasing who I was, or rather, who I will be. It is a lightlessness born both of eternity and instantaneousness. I am, for a time, both peace and chaos. I am whole, yet flawed. I am ideal, yet non-substantial. And then, in the first after that followed the dark eternity, I am once more of a substance, of a mind, of a will and place. Not whole, not at peace, nor eternal, or swaddled in defensive blackness. My first sensations were, as with all among my race, those of overstimulation. I was born small and helpless, but with my senses fully formed and completely active. My eyes were wide, my ears open, my skin fully formed, my nose fully active. All in spite of the fact that the brain which connected to those fine senses was utterly underdeveloped. The first 100 times that I had sorted through my life, I had somehow neglected this moment, my first moment. But was that such an odd thing? After all, what great revelation or vital truth could I uncover here? The thought itself revealed my conceit, an arrogance which adhered to my humors like a parasite latched painlessly over my very eyes. Even the smallest moments can have the largest impacts and carry within them truths of secret, silent, and utmost import. And as wisdom would dictate, there was something here, something valuable to be unearthed, even amidst these incomprehensible times of inelegant youth. Here, in my birth, born to vision by the harsh contrast of experience, was revealed the nature of my creators, long departed before my birth. The hands that had crafted and cut my race into existence were far more elegant and endlessly more callous than those which had borne mankind to sentience. How bias our views against the blind, thoughtless claws of evolution, when, by comparison to ourselves, our own thoughtful sires were crueler to us in Genesis than even those convoluted machinations which gave rise to the members of mankind. Even their swollen, mutant warrior caste, for all of the cruelty inflicted onto them, were treated fairer than we Eldari. For even the Losian were allowed to be born as innocents, and live for a time as true children. Such things are denied to all of the offspring of the Elder Ones, from every one of the children of Isha to all of the kindred corrupted by Cain. From the dawn of our first war to the final death of our race. My arrogance was once such that I could have been proud at this discovery. Now, I feel only the soft song of sorrow's lilt. I do not bemoan my nature, but I do bemoan the cruelty of my innocence's death. I could have been the same quality of warrior had my entrance into the world been gentler. But we Eldari were never intended to be or do gentle things. I reconcile myself within this fact, and move forward in time, colors within memory shifting like a parade around a spinning wheel. My life is chaos, and with great effort, I begin to constrain it back into order. I am young and still very small. I am standing on a stool, cutting with a finely edged, peeling knife, blinking sleep out of my eyes. Lethargy quickly being replaced with the ravenous hunger of childhood. The transparent roof above me allows in the simulated sunrise from outside, coloring the hues of our home. White to the human eye, yet brilliant with the patterns and arts only conveyable through the subtler colors of the spectrum. Through the many gently bent windows of our home, I can see rows upon rows of green-leafed, red-barked ragasham trees, their ordered lines forming orchards. Their drying barks release a myriad of scents and wonderful smells into the air, and I take deep breaths of pleasurably spiced wind as it wafts in through the few open windows. My hands move quickly and clumsily, holding the fine peeling knife a little too lightly as I rush to create my breakfast. I stop when I've skinned a half bowl of spongy jibby grapes, discarding the poisonous skins into the triangular hole nearby which disposed of such things. I cradled the bowl carefully as I hopped off the stool I stood on, and kept the bowl above my head as I walked over to the table and slid it on and over the lip. It was a long, ovular table, tall but with high chairs for me to use. I climbed up onto my chair, the jug of pale purple fermented jasa already waiting for me, along with my utensils. I took the jug in both hands and carefully poured its creamy substance into my bowl until it had filled most of it, bringing the floating, dark blue grapes up to the rim of the bowl. Placing the container aside, I picked up my prongs and dipper and began roughly cutting the plump, spongy delights in half, watching as their own dark juices mingled with the creamy jasa, the halved grapes becoming saturated with both. I licked my lips in anticipation as I filled my dipper with a generous portion of the bowl's contents and began to ravenously shovel it into my mouth. Sweetness and starch washed over my tongue, but that euphoria was not to last, and as my sires rose and moved into the main room, bitterness swiftly replaced delight. The moment I could see them, I knew something was coming, for my family had never been in the habit of lying, and speaking among our kind happened long before words were ever actually exchanged. The rise of their hair, the angle of their ears, the tightness around their cheeks, the sway of their shoulders, of their elbows and hips. I needed no psychic aid to know that I stood before a precipice, though I knew not its nature yet. My parents came to stand to either side of me. Myself sat down in a high chair between them, my feet dangling, but not kicking. I could feel my eyes trembling as I looked, first at my mother and then at my second father. They spoke and revealed what was occurring, and though their soft smiles did blunt the pain, they did so only as much as a cotton shirt could blunt the cut of a honed knife. I was soon aflame within, my mind swimming amid discordance, even as my face became placid in defiance of it all. But I was helpless before the future, and once more, unbidden, the future had arrived. I was being made to choose again. The first time, I had been so young as to make the choice randomly. It felt unfair and yet somehow that randomness had nearly made it feel pure as well. A veil of ignorance to absolve any mistake I may have made. This time, however, I understood enough to grasp the gravity of it, to know fully that I was among the reeds and rivers of fate, and for some reason, the steering oar had just been thrust into my untested hands. My mother had changed her path, and with that shifting, so too did the paths of others around her contort with and against her. Already her personality had begun to change, and I knew by the end she would likely resemble little of her former self. I did not hate that. I loved my mother. I loved her even in her many shades. But my second father, he did not. My mother and father were separating. And yet I understood why he would do this, and loved him as well. I loved them both. I had known my mother for longer, but now that she was changing, what would that matter? Was this a small decision, or a large one? Would I, in spite of their smiling, soft faces, be judged for my decision here? My parents were separating, and the choice of whom to go with was mine. This was tradition, not a personal choice, and both of my parents were quite at peace with it, as they had been before. But I was not. So many parts of myself were in conflict, layers upon layers of my mind becoming inflamed with so many emotions. I had never felt so strongly before. I had the sense of being bent, of my very self breaking and cracking, creaking and lurching against the pull of my desires, my feelings, and the cacophony of petulant thoughts which came with them. Why did I have to make this choice again? Why did the choice have to be made at all? If they both loved me, why not fight over whom I would go with, or at least make less than equal cases for themselves? Was I being needy by thinking that? Did it matter how long I had known someone if their paths shifted? Would it vary? Would it not? And why did my heart hurt so much making this decision? I didn't have to be with just one. I could go between them, between the three if I liked, my two fathers and my one mother. But somehow, that barely salved the pain driving down into the area between my heart and stomach, piercing me like the sharp end of a pike. Why couldn't we stay together? Stay the same? Why wasn't reality conforming to my comfort? Why was I being punished? Why did I have to choose? Shame, guilt, and resentment formed an Ouroboros of pain within the pit of my soul. It had seemed to have lost relevance in the passing centuries, but I could feel it still, like a ringworm in my heart, a disc blade grinding softly within the depths of myself. And, worst of all, it was no mere biting thing, but a foundational thing, a thing which defined me, which created me. This thing was the seed and root of my rage, of that which would one day drive me to bow before the throne of Cain, and to slake myself on the endless blood which welled up from that bladed throne. What would I become if I cracked this blade inside my soul? What would happen if this snake in my heart, upon which I had unknowingly shaped so much of myself, uncoiled and vanished? Would I vanish as well? What would I be? What would I call myself when my name lost its definition? I put that fear aside and I choose to carry through. I reach out within that strange, shard-like thing that is my heart, dipping my arms into the cold fire of my soul's vitae. I form a bowl with my hands, and with great care, I grate the aging waters of my life between my fingers, and scoop forth the Ouroboros. I cradle that serpent, so small and so hard, in the bed of my cupped hands. With my thumbs I gently massage it, untensing the small, painful thing with soothing strokes, feeling the agony, the pitiful lumps and bones under its thin, scaly skin. Rest now, I whisper to it, loving it, hating it, for it is myself, at least in part. Ail no longer. You are but a child's pain, not a sin. Myself is not your responsibility. Dance no longer for that which lays atop you, and know that I will endure. Relent your grip, cease your struggle, and know peace. The small serpent shifts against my palms, its watery eyes gazing up at me in sudden appeal. Without words or sound, yet with unmistakable meaning, it begs me for its life, for its existence, for pity's sake. It is afraid. I am afraid. But there is nothing to fear, and no mercy in pity. Rest now. I insist to it, pressing, working, aching as I do. There is nothing left to fear. It tenses, it writhes weakly, and then it softens in my hands, glistening eyes slowly closing. I feel a deep pain, an echo far within my hollow self, as the existing order begins to shake and then crumble. It is divine agony, and I smile despite my tears. The small serpent's fanged mouth opens, and it releases its tail, its last breath escaping with it. It turns to water in my hands, warm and smooth and fragrant, spilling from my fingers and into the wind. I feel living death accompany the caress of that wind, and smile into the future, suffering my victory. This cycle, too, is now broken.
How can they say that?
I yell, my voice raw in my throat. My body motion was a rage of curses, openly broadcasting my anger, my indignation, and many times, my genuine, murderous intent. This was more than a mere rejection. This was a redefinition of the very foundations I had built so much upon. Around me was the empty viewing hall, empty save for my echoes, my wretched self, and my lover's silent presence.
Deny me? How can they reject this? Just because they fear it, just because it reminds them of those things which are uncomfortable. They should be rewarding me for this. I am brave enough to weave into Wraithbone that which others fear to even contemplate. They call it a visage of the great enemy, but it is not that at all. How can they be so blind?
My rage circled, biting its own tail and keeping my blood hot. All the while, Eluzira watched me with cat's eyes, glowing in the dim light, a mist about my storm, observing the gales of my emotions, yet only lightly stirred by them herself. She walked the path of the Muse, a rare, and many argued, outdated path of the oldest Asuyani. As I shaped the wraithbone of my craft, so did she shape the nebulous clouds of my mind's eye, mirroring my deepest drives with ever greater intensity. She extended out her shaping hand now, though only metaphorically. They are shaped by fear, generations of it. On creaking bones and sundered souls do their perspectives tilt. They are not like us, so naturally they would reject that which they do not understand. They no longer look upon mystery with open eyes. They do not allow within them that which they do not see already reflecting themselves. No, not even their true selves, only their ideal selves. All else is to be disregarded or discarded. She said, singing the words to me on the rhythms of truth purity. Turning my eyes on her, I could see that even as she lounged, she spoke yet, unheard, but not unseen. The angling of her ears, the lax tension in her hair under her eyes, and the breathing undulation of her chest and shoulders all spoke to the sublime superiority she was projecting, casting aspersions upon not only the fools who led my path, but the entire hierarchy of the craft world itself. I turned my body to face her with an impassioned flourish, communicating my own agreement and vehement disdain of the Eldar Asuyani and their fickle ways.
They cling to the past while fearing our roots. They look to the future, yet provide nothing new. A road into the unknown cannot be paved on stones quarried at home. New paths must glitter with gems of their own, or else their construction will become impossible. I know I did not present perfection to them. I presented truth. Heluzi, how can they be so blind as to not see that truth, and only truth, can lead the path to perfection? If they lead us, but do not wade in the facts of the universe, then how can they claim to lead us at all? Where by the thirsting plague do they intend us to go?
I railed. Likely they intend for us to go nowhere. Like a beast content to devour its own tail, they would have us remain stagnant. In their minds, we are already perfect. In their minds, it is the universe which must be broken. She said, skillfully rising to her feet, her steps ceremonial upon the polished floor, enticing me with postures that spoke of my own hidden potential, and movements which sang my spurned grace. But lovely as that heated lure was, it did not sap the already burning resentment I felt clawing and scouring within me. If anything, she only stoked it, and in rage I turned away from her, showing her my back as I faced once more my creation. A towering form, arms open in wide embrace. The body shape was that of the Eldari, but far taller, made in the stature of our gods. The eyes were made of soft red stone, the color of freshly hewn vitae, but of soft expression. The mouth was quirked into a smile, both playful and adoring, and the face was handsome, precisely carved and perfectly symmetrical. Nails long, hands out to the sides, its posture was one of acceptance, yet the muscular drawn into the naked body was tense, pronounced, full of a restrained power, one which may spring forth at any time, like the releasing of a spring. From alabaster skin sprouted horns of many hues, drawn out of crystalline materials and growing like the branches of a tree. Out from across the flawless form, twisting and bending, irregular and unique, each one. Each horn had been endowed with my special attention, each one a work of art on its own, refracting light or thought in a unique way. A kaleidoscope of perspectives, all emerging from the skin of the god. I called it my Methuselah. They called it abomination. I called it the truth. They decried it as heresy, an old word, barely uttered, or so it should have been. But how I was dismayed to bare my soul to them in bone and thought, only to be cut by that ancient, primitive weapon. Heresy. They branded me a crafter of heresy, openly accusing me of abandoning the true path of the Shaper and treading the way of the lost instead. Yet I am not wayward. I know I am not. Sensing the turmoil within me, Eluzira wrapped her arms around me from behind, her skin sliding over the bardings of my craft, pulling me close to her, feeling her resonate beside me, amplifying and accepting my tempestuous musings. Our contact painted more meanings into my mind, the language of touch moving between us. In the eve of my denial, she took me, and I took her, glorying in our own small rebellion, unknowingly watering seeds of emotions and youth which would grow into groves of convictions and paths. Such foolish dalliances, such self-inflicted wounds, yet hovering behind the future's tattered veil. We would continue to fuel each other, I to her and she to me, my art growing in daring and vision, until one day it finally overcame us, overcame her. My mouth trembles, dry as ashes, and just as bitter. My spoken words find no air to fuel them, but my ears twitch, my shoulders rise, and my eyes plead in denial of reality. My body adopts postures of dismay, of concern, and of growing pain, but my muse is still and silent in response, her breathing the only sign that she is still alive. And even that communicates nothing. With the shape of my eyes, the tilt of my face, and the crease of my brow, I beg her, implore her to answer me, to reveal to me if she is well, if she is sick, if she is even still herself at all. Eluzira, are you unharmed? I signal with my curled fingers, my tense shoulders, my shifted spread stance. Eluzira, how has this happened? I say through the emotions and pseudo-thoughts that link our spirit stones together. Eluzira. Oh, Eluzira, what have you done? I speak at long last through my own aired words. We stand in the shadows of a great tree in one of the groves of our favorite inspirations. A red grove, an eternal autumn all of our own. But today the leaves were fallen and brown, and the only shadows cast were by the many clawing branches of the naked wood. Today the red came not from that which grew above our heads, but instead from that which bled beneath. The mutilated body of Terabin, my former teacher, lay twitching, fading beneath the false sunlight of our craft world. He was dissected, his skin and flesh delicately peeled open, innards removed and placed out, each pulsating, still connected to his barely living body by veins and bruised, bleeding tissues. Blood spilled, rich and stark from his nose and mouth, which gaped open in rapid wheezing gasps that were likely meant to be screams of terror. His eyes were wide, bulging in his skull, but not looking at me. Instead, Terabin stared off to his right, his limp arm reaching out across the sun-dappled shadows, fingers extended towards his spirit stone, which lay shattered just beyond his reach. And standing over him, holding the still bloody implements of her craft, was Eluzira, my Eluzira. She was dressed in white, so white, just like her skin. Her black hair was a storm around violet eyes, a beautiful pillar, pitiless and hard, casting her shadow over her victim like a claim. Her hands were red, and she watched him, not staring up at me even once. Terabin's fingers twitched. He was dying, but he was not yet gone.
Eluzi, snap out of it!
I yell, trying to reach her, yet fearful of coming any closer. Already the craft world knows. Already many are coming to help, to stop this madness before it could progress further. Though I am shunned, they are all suddenly with me, a family unbidden but welcomed within my mind, as I find myself alone before the specter of my sins. That specter finally looks up at me, eyes glowing a dull-hued crimson for a few moments, and in that time, I come to the full realization of what she has done. You drank him. I managed to choke out, finding my voice strange, strangled in my throat. I did. She agreed, her voice calm, almost dismissive. We are forbidden from doing this. Eluzira, this is well and truly the path of damnation. I say, pleading, but for what I do not know. My voice carries the lilt of horror all about it. Lines have been crossed, barriers broken, vows undone. How was this even possible? How could I not know? And that is when I see it, or rather, realize that I do not see it. Her soul stone. Where is your spirit stone? I speak suddenly, rhythms of horror deepening as my realization was brought into focus. My Muse, you are unguarded, in danger, shield yourself! I warn with my fingers, the posture of my stunned form shifting as I take 2 steps to the left. Her eyes angle down absent-mindedly towards her chest, the medallion containing her soul guard missing from where it normally rested. Eluzira shrugged at me afterwards, that soft bobbing of her shoulders the only meaning she gave from her otherwise still form, so still, so unnaturally silent. I did not need it for this, she says to me, still so calm, as if our world, our time together, was now at an atrocious end. All of the rebukes by the men and women I had thought fools suddenly reared from memory, violating my mind, reaching up into the present from the doorway of my past, shredding away any defense of ignorance I may have used to absolve myself. We had been warned, and we had not listened. Rebels and rebellion had become the seed and soul of catastrophe, of damnation, and at this realization, I felt my world churn around me.
How could you do this? You have fed one of our own to she who thirsts. You have betrayed the surety with which we defied the wisdom of the elders.
I say out loud, gesturing towards my fading teacher, my own person still kept away by her own proximity to where he lay. Stand aside! Let me see to him! I signal in the same instance as I speak, using my shoulders, feet, and ears to communicate the demand with accentuated sharpness. She answered me with a knife's grin. That pale smile would never cease to chill me, and in all the times I would remember it, none would be so cold as that moment I saw it for the first time. Eluzira's smile was as frigid and pure as the black void, empty of light and warmth, empty of soul and sanity. Wisdom, you claim I have betrayed us, but from where I stand, I am the only one still holding fast to our ideals. Why have you faltered? This man may have taught you, but he also sought to restrain you. How many nights did I soothe your rage? And of those nights, how many of them bore rage borne onto you by this gatekeeper and his meddling? She said with her lips, even as she mocked me with the silent language that was exchanged between our bodies. Oh, will you not tend to him if I am close by? Where has our trust gone? Was it really so thin as to be washed away by the blood of this coward? She asked me through her shrug, her sway, the quirking of her eyes and the lowering of her ears. Her rhythms were casual, her various tones harmonizing to the humors of normality, as though we were doing nothing more than discussing Astral's great fall. I could not accept that. Heat rose in my chest, such righteous fire, such foolish thunder. My rage was not permission to kill! And what you have done, Eluzira, it is so much more than mere murder. You are standing naked in the sight of the thirsting one. You are denying Taraban entry into the circuit. You drank of his soul. You have done the forbidden. I almost scream at her. You are dangerous, unpredictable. I dare not approach you while you are armed. I say with my fingers, moving them as I yell. She sways in response, stepping away from Taraban and closer to me while adopting postures of platitude. I try to backtrack, but I am not quick enough to avoid her as she comes in close, each step still so casual, even as her speed suddenly increased. Then I shall approach you. She signals and acts at once, wordlessly communicating through the twitch of her face and the light, quick strokes of her feet across the ground. I hiss out an anxious breath as she draws herself up to me, her body pressing against mine, my heart racing in my chest, feeling her own heart against me, beating slowly, calmly. Have you forgotten what we decided so long ago? What we determined in the sight of the Methuselah? Those things which are forbidden to short-sighted fools are not forbidden to us. This thirst, this ability to drink in the very soul of another, it is a part of ourselves, our nature, every bit as true and as real as our art and what it represents. She whispers into my ear. Our art? What does this abomination have to do with our art? What beauty can she expect me to see in this butchery? What kind of truth does my muse want to show me through such cruel eyes? Why? Why have you done this? I ask again, my whole form frozen in her grasp. Eluzira lifted her face to meet my eyes and smiled that terrible, frigid smile. I did it for you. I am your muse, after all. She said, speaking those horrible words I had suspected she would say all along. No, no! I did not ask this of you! I did not want this for either of us! I rail, grabbing her wrists and prying her off and away from me. But Eluzira knew how to goad me, and I found myself once more stunned to stillness as her lips met mine. That soft touch, that intimate contact was like a key, one which she used against my defense. How many times had I sought solace in such sensations? She was so close now. The heat of her presence, the smell of her breath, of her hair. I felt my indignation, my horror at what had been done, stagger and sag, my defiance wavering in her embrace. Though I lacked the strength to push her away, I did disarm her of her bloody tools, weapons she gave up willingly, allowing my hands to be occupied by them so that she might renew her embrace. "I know," she said as, at long last, we broke apart once more. "That is why I had to do it. I was waiting for you, coaxing you, trying to help you take the next step. But you are kind-hearted, my love, too kind to take these final steps on your own. So I have taken them for you." She whispered, "Elusi, this is suicide. The others are coming. They will be here at any moment." I say back to her, staring into her violet eyes, those unblinking pools of obsessed madness. "I have prepared for that. I have a way out for us. A ship has been called. An outcast is waiting. The others have been delayed. I only ever intended for you to be the one who found me here." She tempts. So what? You want me to abandon the craft world? To go with you to where?" I ask, trying to ground myself. "I want you to reach the truth you have always yearned for," she answered. "Your destiny is not death, my love. That is why I have created a way out for us. Your destiny is more than that. But first, there is something you must do. A step you must take." My mad muse continued. She slid around me then, movements fluid as she repositioned herself behind me, her arms sliding over me to ensure that I would still be facing her desired direction. Before my eyes, Terabin's last moments were sliding by. "Drink," she whispered, her lips tickling my ear. I can't," I gasp in answer, unable to absorb the sin she now requires of me. In response, she tugged and then yanked on the thin chain around my neck, tearing my soulstone away and tossing it into the dried leaves. I jerk with the motion, making to stop her, but my hands are full and she has anticipated me regardless. Suddenly naked before the thirsting all-eye of the nemesis, I feel uncontrollable shudders run down my spine. "Yes, you can," she says to me. "Just open your eyes and let it in. It is natural as eating. You just need to learn how to begin, and the rest will come." I feel sickness riddle me, filling me like a demonic pox, tainting my every humor. How has it actually come to this? Eluzira, this is madness. I do not even know how. I yell, twisting, but she holds fast. "You must try. Watch him. Look," she hissed, her hands falling to either side of my head, forcing me to watch, to see Taraban's last agonized seconds. I felt something building, a pressure against my eyes, a tension in my heart, in my very soul. This moment, this place, it was hell. And even more terribly, it had to end, and it could only end with my decision. And what a terrible decision it was. "Hurry," she urged me, and with that word, I was moved to finally act. I broke free of her grasp with a hard jerk, the act much easier now that she had repositioned her hands. I kicked my soulstone from the ground where it lay, not too far away, my gem medallion clattering against Taraban's limp, reaching hand. With all of my psychic might, I tore myself free of my spirit gem, beginning the act, even as I began to kick it. Using the physical act as a ritual focus, I vacated what portions of my soul remained within the stone, making way and room for my former teacher's desperate attempts at survival. With the last of the light in his mind and the final echoes of his strength, he grasped it and died. I could only hope that his soul would have the might and the sense to escape the scouring of she who thirsts by entering my soul gem. But I was unable to confirm or deny whether or not this was the case, for I was spinning to face my maddened heretical muse even then. As I had anticipated, she was lunging, leaping, reaching for me, her face a ravenous mask, one of opportunity spurned, of gifts rejected, of love denied. Her subtlety was gone, and the wrath of her path was upon me. My defense was pathetic, but against her madness, it proved enough. She leapt onto me, the upraised blade I had stolen from her earlier sinking into her chest. I screamed as she fell over me, her hands gouging at my face and eyes. Her heart raced, tearing itself apart against my blade, but still she did not relent, did not stop her fury, did not relinquish her final passion, until she had relinquished her life. At one moment, tearing and screaming, blood streaming from her lips, and then, in the next, she was still, limp, not weakening gradually, but failing all at once, like an enraged puppet, her strings now cut. Blind, panting, listening, I pushed her weight off my body, and realized immediately that I was alone. The wheezing rasps of Terabin's breaths had vanished, and from my love, the only thing I could hear was her absence. Wretched, hollow in many more ways than I could count, I rose to my feet and wailed my failure. Such pain, such unnecessary pain. How different would my path have been had I not mixed my convictions with the petty pursuits of self-gratification. Many would judge that she was the corrupter, and I her victim. But this is false, for she was a muse, a beautiful mirror, reflecting with ever greater intensity the heart of an artist's drive. And though I was driven by truth, I was also motivated by things endlessly pettier, and she could not withstand the alloy that resulted. As my mirror, her soul had been in my hands, and I had failed in that charge, failed in the most complete way possible. Those I had called for help would arrive at the scene not long after. But when they finally did lay eyes upon the devastation I had wrought, they would not find me among it. Blind, soul-struck, and naked in the gaze of the great enemy, I somehow made my way to the waiting outcast, who knew me without words, and took me without toll or promise. Though at the time I had thought it long past, I realized now that this was the death of my childhood, and the beginning of my true path. But only the beginning.
Walking the crossroads of hell on earth, a devil's deal for a new rebirth. I've given my all, and day by day my soul still breaks. I can remember crossing the line when ushered into a darker time. But we were in agony. You left me in your wake. guns and I heed the call. With every time I plunge the steel, I'm seeing you. You once had used my desire to kill, granted me hope with a quiet thrill. I watched as you changed the world around me, couldn't do. When I curse your name, can you see my face? And do you taste my pain in this blood-stained place? Forever on the attack, I'm fighting into the black. Without you, without you, will my scars reveal all the sins you chose and how betrayed I feel in my fractured bones? For us there's no turning back, I'm fighting into the black. Without you, without you. I guess I gambled and lost when fate shuffled our decks. Now that I suffer the wrath of your mad god complex, as I follow the path where the darkness collects so much death. What for? What for? What for? Though I'm losing control, I can't give up the chase. No time for mourning the loss of what hatred replaced. There lies barely a soul behind my changing face. I will break no more, no more, no more. When I cast your name, can you see my face? And do you taste my pain in this blood-stained place? Forever on the attack, I'm fighting into the black. Without you, without you, well, my scars reveal all the secrets